Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I am Allincrypto, and today we have an exciting Cardano update video for you. And it is predominantly going to be an update. We're going to be looking at some really interesting things taking place with Cardano right now. In our last update, we really started the video off by talking about why it was we continue to champion Cardano. We very much think that Satoshi's vision was a real one, and Cardano as a blockchain, I do believe, very much embodies that and actually tries to further it in the same way that Ethereum came around and said, look, let's take Satoshi's vision of this decentralized kind of system and let's add an extra layer of capabilities to it. Many other layer ones have strayed away from that path, whereas Cardano has really kept that at its core ideology. And Cardano is built for you, ladies and gentlemen. It is built to give sovereignty and power back to you guys in a world where it is taken away from you at each and every corner, give you your identity back, give you your financial sort of property back, and everything in between, give you your rights back. So this is why we continue to champion Cardano. It's not necessarily because we think it is going to, and it may as a result of this, offer the best investment opportunity. You know, we have a basket of over 20 cryptocurrencies that we hold in our portfolio. Cardano just happens to be one of them. And we really do believe in the kind of ideological values behind Cardano, and we stressed that in our last update. And it's always really nice to connect with viewers like many of you that feel the same way. But this is going to be an update more so than anything, and we're going to be looking at a number of different things. I'm going to start the video off with a clip of talking about the crypto space generally and where it's heading, and how technological revolutions take hold, and that crypto is no different. You are early today, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at the average time, which we'll do with this clip, of a technology being adopted, you're at the very, the firing gun has just gone and you are just there. And we've often used this analogy of Cardano being a kind of tortoise against a hare. You know, we all know how that story ended, and we've seen that in a number of cases. You know, if you compare it against Luna and all these other sort of here today, gone tomorrow cryptocurrencies that have leveraged unideal practices, it's done very well, and we think that's because of the peer review slower approach to release. So we're going to start there. Then we're going to look at a clip of Charles Hoskinson talking about bidding for the Wyoming Stablecoin rights to essentially facilitate it. We'll expand on that a little bit more. Lots of people have suggested that this is not going to be the case, and it's likely going to be someone like Circle and an ERC20 kind of token, and with no kind of Cardano involvement. Charles Hoskinson has actually replied to this comment recently, which we'll look into. And then we're going to do a bit of a project update. We're going to be looking at GitHub. We're going to be talking about Midnight and Mithril, which are now live and ultimately being upgraded along with Cardano itself. We've spoken about Cardano really as this kind of supercharged chain where you've got all these things that, you know, some people can't quite see how they come together, but they will, and they'll essentially enable the builders and the users of Cardano to have a enhanced blockchain across a number of different areas, whether that be TPS in regards to Hydra, whether that be security or privacy in regards to Midnight, whether that be downloading a node efficiently with Mithril, or whether perhaps that be deploying with Marlowe in an easy and efficient fashion, or whether that be something like ALLIN, which is looking to bring EVM to the space. You know, it really is going to become a supercharged blockchain. So we've got a lot to get into. I don't want to wrap it on for too much longer. Before I do start everything, guys, I just want to give a shout out to my stake pool. We have been operating a stake pool now since 2021. It's something that we're going to continue to do. And it's very sad to see many stake pools, smaller stake pools like mine, capitulate and actually shut up shop. So we will be here for the next 10, 15, 20 years, who knows, 100 years, staking or facilitating you guys to stake and helping run the Cardano network. So please, guys, do consider becoming a Allincrypto stake pool delegator. We have minted, I think, 8 or 7 blocks this epoch alone with this amount of stake, which is nearly 300% luck, and we are gaining over the hearts of delegators. So please do consider joining the Allincrypto stake pool, and we will be bringing discords and things out of that nature very soon to sort of get together as a community, certainly in regards to voting and things like this that's coming. I think it's going to be quite important. Let's go ahead and dive in with the first clip, ladies and gentlemen.
We are in the early stages of this technology, and I really want to provide some examples of that. It generally takes about 25 to 30 years for human beings to adopt a new data transfer technology. Radio was invented in 1890, but wasn't commercially available until the 1920s. TV was developed in the 1920s, but wasn't in homes until the 1950s. Email was invented in 1969, but most of you most likely didn't have an email address until 1997. There is one that I really want to focus on, and that's TCP/IP, which is the internet, for those that don't know. It was developed as a DARPA project in 1970, but it wasn't really commercially accepted until 1995 when it was rolled out with Windows 95. There's another important date, which is 1983. 1983 is when TCP/IP was accepted as the standard protocol for internet development, 13 years after it was created. Well, here we are, 13 years after Bitcoin was created, and we're just now starting to talk about standardization. This is not a coincidence. Adoption at this stage is not a technology problem, it's a human conditioning issue. Every 13-year-old in the United States has only existed in a world where Bitcoin has existed. 3 years from now, every 16-year-old will have only existed in a world where Bitcoin has existed. 16 years old is an important date because it's generally when someone becomes interested in becoming a developer. They are the adoption layer. We here in this room, we're the infrastructure layer. It's our responsibility to create an environment where every 13-year-old American has a framework upon which they can build the next world on. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Nothing short of fascinating. It really does put things into perspective. This is no different, other than perhaps on a bigger scale, in regards to what it's changing. Everything. The very systems that we operate on are being changed and revolutionized with blockchain. Right now, we're communicating over the internet. I have lights on, which came from an electricity revolution, which actually Wells Fargo likened to the revolution of blockchain and DLT more so than blockchain, because we're seeing the rise of DAGs and other things. Very interesting topic. Extremely interesting, and I totally agree. You know, we are on the early and cusps of greatness, and this technology, I personally believe Cardano is going to play a role in that, and I think it's going to play the role of being the censorship resistant, being the fairer, more inclusive platform. I really do believe that. The next clip I wanted to dive into, guys, is a clip of Charles Hoskinson at Rare Evo, talking about that they recently have been bidding to facilitate Wyoming Stablecoin. I know Wyoming is, of course, a state within America, but it's very interesting, and I actually think that we are going to see more and more public blockchains interacting with government, you know, whether that be on a state level or a kind of more federal level. And this could be huge. And then we're going to look at actually some pushback to this in regards to, of course, multiple people will be bidding for it, like Circle and kind of EVM-based chains. And Charles actually gives his response to this. Let's go ahead and dive into that before we give some very quick updates on Midnight and, of course, Mithril.
I'll give an example. So currently we're on the subcommittee and working directly with the committee at the state of Wyoming for Wyoming Stablecoin. So this is a really interesting one because the legislature passes a law and says the government shall endeavor to issue a stablecoin. And they didn't really give a lot of clarity inside the law of exactly what that means. They just said, you guys go and do it. So now the state of Wyoming is trying to figure out, okay, not only how do we do that, but how do we do that in a way that's good for the citizens of Wyoming, doesn't create a war between the state of Wyoming and the federal government, and also is something you could build an ecosystem around. Now, we'll, as a company, bid to build that, and we'll see through the RFP process if that makes sense for both sides. But let's say we do get that RFP in 4 or 5 years down the road. If you're a government entity, you have a political, moral, and in many cases statutory obligation to be involved in the governance of the platforms you use for the betterment of your people. So they would be an example of a party that we would encourage to join Intersect, and then that state would say, hey, these are the kinds of features and functionality we would need to continue having a sovereign currency on the system. Or you could look for any CBDC or state-issued asset-backed stablecoin or these types of things. Now, this is actually a tremendously complex project under the hood because it doesn't just involve the issuance of an asset or custodial standards. There's actually a rich discussion about how in a Web3 world do you automate regulation? How do you do KYC and AML? What markets should this be available for? Should it be B2B or B2C? And, or is this something that other governments are going to start holding in reserve? What happens when this goes into the secondary market and there's market making and it ends up all in Africa and other places? Like, is that okay? Is that not okay? Who has redemption rights? These types of things. Each of those questions potentially leads to business requirements, technical requirements, infrastructure requirements that would need to be added to the roadmap of Cardano if Cardano was the platform for that to exist upon. That's a very practical thing because Wyoming could wake up and say, you know what, you can pay your taxes in this. When you get your tax refund from the state, or if you're going to get a welfare check or something, your cell phone app will just send you the digital money instead of that. So it really does behave like a digital dollar, and that'll affect the lives of 500,000 people and potentially globalize the treasury of the state of Wyoming and put it on par with Circle and Tether. So it's a huge impact in the state.
We'll leave that there. I always get this question, and that is, why would institutions decide to deploy on public blockchains rather than private? This is Pandora's box of a question, and it's something that I have debated with probably at this point hundreds of people. And I can see arguments to why certain individuals wouldn't deploy on public, and I can see many arguments to why they would. One is in the case of a world reserve currency, perhaps. Do you really want one centralized power over that? Okay. In regards to institutions or corporations or small to medium enterprises, they aren't going to have the funds to build their own blockchain. So what they're going to do instead is they're going to use the public ones. They're not going to use their competitors' blockchains that do have the money, so on and so forth. We could have this really long debate on this, but very interesting the things that Charles is talking about there. There was a tweet actually that I wanted to quickly go over. Shout out to this individual here. Stake with Pride, Cardano SPO, so he's a stake pool operator. Do review Paul Barron's latest Cardano episode. He suggests the only person with blockchain background in the Wyoming Stablecoin Commission worked at Circle, confirming it will likely be an ERC20 token with no Cardano involvement. Charles Hoskinson goes on to reply, I'm on the subcommittee and literally driving up tomorrow to be at the commission meeting alongside several others. It's an open RFP process and will obviously bid. Flavia doesn't speak for the governor, treasury, state auditor, or the legislator who wrote the bill. Very, very interesting. Just a quick update now on a lot of things going on. If you look at Cardano's GitHubs, we know that I think that Ethereum was first, then Polkadot, and then it was Cardano in terms of development activity and inputs. Let's finish this video off with a couple of clips from the Cardano 360 event where they're actually talking about, first of all, Mithril, and then a little bit about Midnight. Let's get into it.
So tell me, Arno, what's the current state of Mithril right now?
We have deployed the first version of Mithril on mainnet in mid-July, 11th of July, if I remember correctly. So this means that now the real fun starts. We have SPO signing the full node database on mainnet, which is 150 gigabytes of data, and we have the aggregator running that can provide and deliver the data for users so that they can basically spin up a full-blown Cardano node in about an hour. And we recently made some improvements into the client that really, you're really limited by your bandwidth now and by the fact that you still have to download 70 gigabytes of data or 60 or 70 gigabytes of data and extract it, but the verification process is very fast and the bootstrap of the Cardano node is very fast. So that's where we are. We are at about 66 SPOs registered as of today. So that's pretty cool because that's already a 3 or 4 fold increase over what we had in the testing network. So there is good excitement in the SPO community, and people are joining, and we are also polishing and really trying to make the onboarding process as straightforward and hassle-free as possible.
There you go. There's clip number 1 on Mithril coming along nicely, and then we'll play a quick clip on Midnight, and I'll love and leave you.
fantastic. We're so glad that you joined the Midnight team. So in case somebody's not familiar with the project, could you tell us a bit more about what Midnight is?
Sure. So if you haven't heard of Midnight yet, this is a data protection blockchain that safeguards sensitive commercial and personal data. It's designed to be regulation friendly, meaning that it will enable dApp creators to comply with their industry regulations and standards. Midnight will use a novel data protection first programming model, Kachina, and ZK proofs.
If you could tell us a bit more about what problems Midnight aims to solve.
There's this challenge of developing secure, decentralized applications that safeguard user data. This is common knowledge in crypto. So while concerns surrounding traditional centralized systems, vulnerability to hacking, decentralization offers a solution. However, complexities of blockchain tech, on-chain exposure risks, and regulatory compliance hindered the adoption and have been hindering the adoption. So Midnight aims to address these by ensuring privacy without on-chain data correlation, enhancing security, simplifying development, complexities of data protecting dApps, while giving the dApp builders the ability to comply with regulations. So Midnight aims to protect the fundamental freedoms.
There we have it, guys. And the interesting thing about Cardano is these papers were published and worked on a long time ago. It's all now coming together. You've got lots of things on mainnet. Eventually, you'll be able to use all of these features seamlessly, potentially from one UI and gain benefits from each of them. That's all we've got for you guys. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this Cardano update. If you have, a like is appreciated. So as a comment, don't forget at stake pool, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.